Hey, welcome to this quick instruction video. We're going to try and assemble this whole thing. I've done the full manual, and you can view it. That's available for download, and that should have most of the details that you need to know for the assembly guide. You know, with pictures and everything else, how all that's supposed to slot together. You know, a couple examples, things like that. But I thought a video might help just really seal the deal and point people in the right direction. So let's run through the tools real quick. I've already done all the soldering, so I'm not going to worry about that. I do have my Allen wrench for 3mm screws, socket heads. I've got a couple of tiny screwdrivers for working this thing together. I've already done the soldering. My antennas are already prepared, so I'm running a dual exterior antenna on this particular model. I've got a GPS, and then I've got this ridiculous gooseneck thing for LARPing. And then I have the Bluetooth antenna that comes with the kit. This is a AuxArc 1907 with the OLED and then an acceleration sensor on the back for whatever reason. The soldering that I've already done, because this has a display, you're going to want a way to cycle through the display. And so this momentary button does that. And this momentary button is captured inside of this frame. It's not glued or anything. It just sits with the prongs kind of poking out the back. And then I've personally bent these down over the top of it, just kind of like really seal the deal. And then this drops over the top of it. And then this whole assembly, just like this, slots into these gaps right here over the top of the rock board. So pretty simple. It's been soldered already. If you look at the soldering on the back, I've soldered it to AIN1, AIN1, and then ground. And then don't be like me and unsolder it because the button doesn't work when you power up the radio. You have to program this in there's a user button in the interface under settings, device settings, that you set this to pin 31, I believe. So that's in the directions, and then Rockland has a really good instruction guide on that. So, but that's how that's already soldered. And then my power harness here, I have my on-off switch, and then I have my pogo pin connector, which connects to the top of my battery. Okay, so when you start wiring your batteries up, make note of how they're orientated, and then that's their standard going forward. Whatever your first battery is, that's how all of yours are going forward. Don't get it backwards or bad things happen. So this is my power harness. Here's my pogo pin that I'll attach to the top of that magnetically. There's magnets on either side of it that'll lock it in place. And then coming off my power, I guess I'll go ahead and set that battery up here. Coming off my power on the back side, it'll come up, make sure I'm lined up here. So it needs to switch. So my power will come off the back pin, and it's going to come up to my on-off switch, which will be on the side of the radio, and then come back on this black wire to here. Now, I would have preferred, when I originally soldered this, my red wire here came up to here, and it was red to red, and then black came back here and was correct. But these pigtails came in opposite of that, so I had to flip the colors, and so the colors don't really matter now. So my red here comes up, comes back here for my power. That's how it is on the board. You'll notice that there's a red plus sign right there on the power. So make sure those are all lined up before you do anything really crazy, and you have to do that anyways with any radio you get, any pigtails you put on. That's just something you have to be aware of. So I've already wired this harness together. Let's go ahead and put it together. So the screws you're going to want come with your rock kit. There's your bigger one that goes through these holes here in the corners, and then there's a little tiny one that I don't actually know what those come for, but there's a bunch of them in there. And when you see this little baggie, it's just full of them. That's what I'm going to use to secure my my magnetic pogo switch here. So let's get going on. I'm going to put my this USB. Okay, real quick, let's talk about this USB guy. This USB is a pain. I looked and looked and looked for something. All this does is extend the board. The board will sit in right here. All this does is extend from here out the side. If you have zero interest in charging, well, yeah, you have to, because that's at the moment that's the only way to charge these batteries is to plug into the radio and through the rock board charge the battery. I am planning on releasing a charging station where the batteries will sit in just like this and charge that way, but at the moment this is it, right? This is the only way to charge it. So you have to have that extension of some sort. There are not really any options. All you really need is a 3 centimeter USB male to female extension, but they're not out there. Nobody needs those kind of things. You can find male to male, but you can't really find this male to female. So I've specifically sourced one through ADT Link, and there's a very specific model that you have to get, and it is the T4A to T3B. So when you're ordering components for this, be sure you get the correct one. So make sure you have that as well, and we're going to orientate it. We'll get that going. So let's start with this stuff. I'm going to do the pogo pin, I think, first. So in the very back, there's a little slot back there. We're going to take this, and I'm just going to, I want to make sure that I'm positive is in the back. So I need to make sure this little thin red wire is in the back. Something else to be aware of is that these little pins spin around. So when you're done, make sure that they're not going to like arc into each other and short out. So I'm going to just slot this in here in the back. So put her in. There we go. Cap. So that cutout matches it about perfectly. Then there's a little hole here. That was a pain for me to line up the screw. I don't know that there's a whole lot of concern. You could glue this at this point, or you can use the screw, whichever one you want to do. I'm going to go ahead and opt to put a little screw in, just to really be sure and make sure that doesn't ever pop out. Because if it pops out in the field, I don't have any way of putting that back in. So the worst part about these little magnetic switches is that they suck your magnets, or suck your screws out and away from whatever you're trying to do. So this threaded in pretty easily, it looks like. The other thing with 3D printing is with a screw that size, you can pretty much just push as hard as you want to on the filament and it'll make a way regardless. So that's secured now. Positives in the back, which lines up with our battery. In front of the battery is this latch. So here we go. If we were to measure it, we'd have positive coming in over here. Same kind of thing with the switch. So there's a slot in the back, just like that, that we're going to put it into. Push it on. And then I have a little post right there that it's supposed to push onto, and that seems to work pretty well. So I'll just do that again. Make sure it's seated all the way in there. All right. Okay, we're seated on that little post right there, and our switch doesn't move. Okay, so this is in. This looks great. Happy with that. I think the next step is to go ahead and put this in. I'm not happy about it. I have had a ton of problems getting this to slot through here, and I've actually had better luck with this piece here coming off and then pushing this part through. I'm gonna go ahead and I have a zip tie. I tried to think of a lot of other ways to do this part, and I just did not have any luck. This little USB link was the bane of my existence in this design. That little rubber thing is not causing problems. Which it is. Let's push it. Just like that. Cool. I was gonna get in there. Kind of see it peeking through. Alright, right there. Okay. Now I'm gonna take my nose of this thing again. Push it through. It'll pop into place. You can kind of feel it lock in back into the USB. And that's something you'll want to function test for sure before you put this thing all together. See if we can get this zip tie back out. For real, I tried so many things trying to make this USB link. Excuse me there. Make sure that guy's up and out of the way. This needs to really be flush with the surface, because if it is not, it will cause you all kinds of problems. And I can see that my fuck. Alright, there we are. In place. This is kind of a good opportunity, honestly. So if you to separate your power lines coming through. So I'm going to take this red wire and run it on the outside. That way it's always split a different direction from my power wire on the inside. If you can see that in there, just like that. Cool. Okay. That's all squared away. All this is secure. Okay, rock board. Put your Bluetooth antenna on the back. There you go. Now we can put this guy in. Okay, he's here. Go ahead and plug in your ADT, your USB. Okay, it's plugged in. Line up your first hole. You're gonna have to compress that USB link more than you really feel like you want to. So I'm gonna get this top right one lined up. Then I'm going to put one more in down here on the bottom, caddy corner from it, and then I'm going to do a function test to make sure all my wiring works. So my GPS over here. All right, all my antennas are hooked up. Now I'm only hooking these up because I am going to power this thing on, and I want to make sure that, you know, in any case it receives or transmits a signal for any reason, that I'm not frying the thing. I also have my momentary button. I'm going to slide over here and put it on. But if you guys haven't, you know, if this is your first time powering the radio up, then you haven't programmed that button for anything, so it's not going to do anything. So don't be too worried. Like I said, I function tested it and it didn't work, and I was unsoldering things and troubleshooting, and then I realized I had to program it. So I'm going to put this OLED button on, this thing on, slot it in, it drops over those posts. Alright, let's try this function test. Right here, our function test is here. I've already programmed my button, so I'm going to hit it. My battery came loose, but that's all the display cycle. Yeah, I can't do it. I can't push that button and keep the battery loaded. So, okay, but all that worked. We're good to go. So, adjust my camera here. All right, so I'm happy with that. I'm going to pull my display off real quick. I'm going to clean up some of these wires. Just kind of tuck them all down in there so everything's nice and clean. So, now we've got to slot this whole thing together. I'm going to pull this charge cap off. And we know when you put this harness here in, it sticks out the top just a little bit. And there's a couple reasons for that. This harness sleeve here slips into this and is held in by the sides. And then the top is actually not held on to the side of the case, but actually to the internals. So what I found was that if this piece here was down flush with the top top screws would pull this up and pull against these threads, and so I had these screws like pointing up into the body a bit more and would misalign it. So I took the top, so now it sticks out a little bit, but then this seats against it nicely and locks the whole thing down a lot better, and it's just better. So you want to go ahead and have your antennas hooked up, because you can't do that once it's down inside of here. It makes it a little more of a hassle, but it's not bad. So I'm going to fold these down in here. I will tell you that I've broke one of these OLED displays. I broke it on a Heltec V3. They are fragile. Don't put any pressure on the sides or anything like that, or you'll be mad at yourself for forever. Just something to keep in mind. I said this button bracket slips right in. No glue needed. Super proud of that. I don't know if I've said that yet. You're gonna have to put up with it for a minute. All these wires, none of my contacts are touching. Everything looks good. All right, I'm gonna slip it in. So start up here. Make sure your Bluetooth antenna on the back. I'm stripping the sticker. I don't want the sticker to come off. You'll notice these pins up here. I gave it a little more clearance. I had to tweak that a little bit. So I see my window lining up. And I can see my holes are lined up on the side. You still see the top is sticking out. So I'm going to take these short little sockets, or socket cap screws, whatever you want to call them. Tighten them in. Now, there's no insets in this. You're only tightening the screws against the 3D print. So you don't want to over tighten, get down to there snug, call it. You don't want to over tighten, you'll just strip it out. It's just plastic. I have not had problems with these, but I've been in industrial maintenance for years, and I really have a decent feel for what stripping out threads feels like, and I've always done pretty well with these threads. It's very rare. I wish I had an inset, and these aren't load bearing, so it's not that big of a deal. All right, so that's in there. My button lines up. I'm going to push it I can feel it clicking and activating in there. The spring pressure for this button is an O-ring. If you didn't figure that out when you installed this plate. So now I'm going to push. Make sure I got my screws handy for this lid. They're different sizes because this side's taller than this side. I'm going to tuck my wires down in there as I go. I feel it sucking down around the O-ring now. This cap sits flush with this top face, so that's when you can know that it's where it needs to be. But really, if you don't see the O-ring, you're there. So pretty close to the top of this guy. And level it out. Okay. Put my antennas back on. You can see the side, my charge port's available, my on-off button, my LARP antenna back on. Alright. These are slightly different sizes. They are both available, both these cases here are available in the 3MF file. The difference is that the this one here, or both of these have got raw 18650s in them, and I've got a battery charging board in, or battery maintenance board, battery management board, BMS board in there. And this one I made, it had a bunch of pigtails in it, because I thought I might take this cap off and put it on other batteries, and that never happened, but I could not fit this thing together. So I put in a little bit longer case for it, and I've got that available if you have to put a battery management board in there and you don't have room for it. This one I was able to get it all tightened down, and it worked out nicely. And then I have this smaller box that would work well for, I mean, this would be tiny in it, but this, like 2,000 milliamp hour batteries would fit in this, or some other stuff. So, and then you can open this up in a Blender, and the blend file for just this is attached, and you can drag the vertices out as far as you want to, export it in STL, and call it a day. I mean, so however much, whatever size you want, it's really easy to change those dimensions in Blender. So there's lugs on the back of this. Slot them in like so. Pivot it up. Radio's on. My cycle works. It did. Yeah, we're working. Yeah, there it is. There's our radio. I'll shorten that latch up and then pop this back on. We're watertight, except for this battery we're rocking around. So that's it. That's the assembly of this radio. Seems like a lot at the moment, but it really isn't that bad. It's just some fiddling and just a little bit extra work there. So well worth it, I think. Being able to pop this off, throw another battery pack on. You know, be able to carry a couple of those out in the the woods a little bit if you need to. Yeah. So hope that helps you guys out.